Rule 42. All persons more than a mile high must leave the court immediately.
1, 2, 3, 42.
Today's rule is rule number 11. Have the important conversations now.
Jen, you're messing with our hat thing.
Do I need the hat?
We're the hat crew.
So it's going to be a cool episode, and we're going to have an end-of-life coach and what that even means. And
A death doula, right?
yeah.
She is a death doula.
Jill
I just like
McClennen. McClennen.
Yes. She's a Scottish death.
Hi.
Yes. Aye, laddie.
Hi.
They'll never take our freedom. That's a great movie. You saw Braveheart.
Braveheart, of course.
Great movie.
You've seen Braveheart.
Yes, that was an amazing movie. Oh my
Yeah, that's
God. It still brings tears.
Yeah. Gladiator was on last night.
Freedom!
I was Gladiators on when I was doing show roasting this night. It's so good too.
That's a good movie, too.
That 300's a good movie.
I've never seen 300.
But I like the
Stop it.
storyline behind it because there's such a strategy and it's
Yeah.
that whole prior preparation prevents poor performance. They prepared their asses off to be able to stand up as long as they did. I wonder, dude, there's no way they had to smell like ass.
They did. A lot of those people did not shower for days.
When you first go through puberty and stuff, it takes sometimes when it's a subtle kind of throughout the day, all of a sudden you're musty. It takes someone else telling you, hey, a little cleanup there or something. But so maybe they were just so accustomed to it.
In that time they took because they took
They believe in showers, baths.
they took their yearly bath in May.
Baths.
Yeah.
In May, and that's why people got married in June, and they held
Smells
flowers. The brides held flowers so they didn't smell that bad, which is crazy, right?
That's so weird.
There must have just been funk everywhere.
You know how they used to make their cheeks pink? Other than blood.
How?
Pinching and smacking.
Oh shoot! What is going on?
Tommy,
with
you're
this
just
link?
failing today.
For real. What's going on with this link?
I mean, I got it.
Partially failing.
That's a quasi-fail.
Yeah, thanks. Quasi fail. Thank you. All right, here we go.
1, 2, 3, 42.
Hi, Jill. Welcome to our rabbit hole.
Hey.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
Good. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
So how are we doing? So sorry, I got wrapped in. So I was actually at a suite event for the New York Yankees, and they had some players in there, but they also had some they had a football player, and they just sent the link for the professional photos that were taken during the event, and I just got sucked into that for a minute. So sorry about that.
It is all good.
Well, Tommy was figuring out his issue with his emails.
Well, I don't. Thank you. I don't think that Jill's from Philadelphia, right?
I am. Yeah.
No, she's not a Yankee fan. So,
No.
because I assume you're not a Yankee. Yeah, there you go. Or a Giant fan.
But she knows
Yeah.
it's baseball and she knows it's football. So I was at a baseball event.
With the Giants quarterback.
Yeah, but no, I don't really care that much about sports either. Love stuff. Yeah, I wish I did. But, I didn't grow up with a dad, and I think that's a lot of it, that my husband for the last 20 years has tried to explain football to me. And every time I'm like, I still don't get this, whatever. But yeah, my daughter, she loves watching it with him. So I'm like, yeah, see, there you go. You got to grow up with it, I think. Or,
Yeah.
No, so I have older brothers, but my dad wasn't really around. So I was an athlete. And I took it very seriously. So for me now, when I go to watch, because I can't play anymore, it's that excitement of those moments that I remember being out there. I mean, obviously not at the level that they're at, but I can't. It must be even more amazing to be at that level and have these people cheering you on or booing you and the stress that goes with it. I empathize for them. And it just makes it more exciting to me to watch this because I know how hard it takes, how much work's gone into it, how many dreams, dude, for some of these guys, this was their dream, their entire life, and it came true. And that's not something that everyone can say. So I'm a big supporter of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have told you you're on a sports podcast. So thank you for.
Well, I know nothing. I'm learning softball though now. And my mom was actually laughing at me when I was like cheering for my daughter. She's pitching now. And she's like, oh, look at you acting like you know what you're talking about. I was like, but I do now. At least a little bit.
Yes.
I'm learning.
You learn. You learn as you go. That's what you got to do with the kids, especially in all the different sports and stuff. You just kind of.
And it's amazing watching them grow in it and something that they're compassionate about. And you see them, they start off with like this like little like.
Oh yeah, she was terrible last year. It's only been a full year that she's played, and I would just sit through those games and I'd be like, oh God, this is torture. This is torture. Nothing's happening. And yet now she's like out there pitching and she's doing pretty well. How old is she? Like impressed. She's 10. So still little, but
Yeah, this is the age.
Yes, because my soon-to-be 10-year-old, we have run the gamut with this kid at everything. And she has like this natural ability to do certain things. But because, I don't know, the age, she's just like, They invited her, like we tried hockey with her. So she was just kind of like learning the stuff, the gear, the hockey skates as opposed to figure skates, like all of that. The working with the stick and the puck. And I don't play hockey, so I don't know any of this shit. I'm learning it as I'm watching. And they liked her, so they invited her to, the person that runs the ice rink invited her to his girls' practices. And this practice were for kids from like 12 and up. And it was their team. It was his team. And he wanted her to have more ice time because he saw potential in her. She was good. She's fast. She's good on her feet. She's been skiing. She's into all of these things. She got there and was so intimidated, wouldn't even go out on the ice.
Yeah. I went through that with her too, where they wanted her to do extra pitching practice. But when she went to the first one, all the girls were older and she wouldn't go out there. She was like, I'm not doing it. And so we were like, fine, whatever. We're not going to push you. And it's a shame because it probably would have helped her. And we tried doing that, encouraging her that you actually get better when you're working with people that are older and better than you are. Like, that's how you get better. But she was like, nope, not doing it. I'm like, all right, that's fine. Whatever.
So as an athlete, I will tell you in that age range, actually being so I was a competitive swimmer. And at my age, I was really good. Like, I was winning, but I was winning by such a large distance that it was no longer challenging. But I didn't look at it in that way. I didn't look at it at that age and go, oh, this is supposed to be something that's challenging. And like, I just saw it and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm winning. What? Like, I was winning strokes that I hated. I hated the backstroke and it was one of my fastest strokes. Like, I was winning. And the coaches pulled me to the side and they're like, okay, so we're going to move you because it's kind of not fair. And I'm like, to who? I'm like, well, to the other kids, because you are like naturally just a lot. Like, you're advanced in terms of this. Okay, fine. They moved me up to much bigger kids. And now I'm going and I'm placing second and third or fourth. The fourth killed me. And I got pissed off and I quit. And little girl me did not realize that it was pushing me to be better, because the one that was winning by leaps and bounds was just winning by doing her little, like, yeah, whatever. And then the girl that was getting second, third, fourth against these kids that were 3, 4, 5 years older than her, 3 and 4, didn't appreciate that she was at that level at that age against people that have been doing it for years. All I saw was I wasn't coming home with a blue ribbon anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's a very hard place to be in. So that's why it's kind of like I want to like choke my daughter, because she could be phenomenal, but she's just, this is the first year I've ever seen her take cheer seriously. And she's been it since she was 3 and she's going to be 10. So it takes them a minute because they forget that's your daughter. Those girls that she was going to be pitching around, they were just like her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like her. And they got better by pitching with girls like her because they're going to want that talent on their team. So they're going to grow that. They're going to nurture that because, hey, this is a girl that we're going to be playing with. Like, she can help us win. Yeah. Or this is our legacy that we're leaving behind. Like, if they're at such an age gap that they won't play together, like, okay, well, we're leaving our team to people that know what they're doing because we grew up teaching them what we know. So it's a great place to be in, but it's so hard to explain to a 10-year-old.
Yeah,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's some of that too, where I'm like, look, it's not that serious, y'all. Like, she's 10. It's softball.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, because the coach definitely was kind of like, wait, she's not coming? And I was like, no, she doesn't want to. And I'm not going to push her. Like, I want her to enjoy childhood, not look back and think, oh, I was constantly pushed into doing things that I didn't really want to do. Or you stop enjoying it because it becomes this other thing. And so I'm like, whatever, she'll be fine. I'm not worried, but it's been fun watching her get better, especially in something I don't understand at all. And I'm learning along the way of what all the different things are and what's going on.
That's awesome. At least she found something that she's like, all right, I could do this. I can hang with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even finding something like that for them is kind of like,
yes.
all right, what is out there that I can drop you off that you won't cry?
Yeah. Yeah, especially today. Yeah, she's got a little bit of that where she'll be like, I don't know, I don't really like some of the girls on the team. I'm like, well, you're not going to ever like everybody.
Yes.
That's part of life. You know, it's okay to not like everybody, but you still have to learn to work together. And, you know, you all have a common goal in mind. Doesn't mean you got to be friends outside of softball.
Yeah.
Exactly. I tell my kids all the time, you don't have to like everyone, but you have to be nice and, you know, kind of try to just coexist nicely.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm afraid to hear one day that she's the mean girl. I don't think she is, but you know, it's like, I just don't want to ever hear that she's that one. Well, that's it. You never know. And so sometimes she could be real mean to me, but supposedly everybody's like, that's because you're her favorite person and she trusts you. I'm like, all right, sure. I'll keep that in mind.
Only child?
No, I have a son. He's 13 and she's 10. And he's always been like easygoing, laid back, super chill. And almost from the moment she was born, it was the total opposite of just like Spitfire and screaming at me. And then 5 minutes later, though, she's like, I love you so much. You're the best mom in the whole world. And I'm like, that's not what you said 5 minutes ago. And she's like, I know. I didn't mean it, though. I'm like,
yeah, that's all hormones. We forget. So I only know that because I have 7 kids, 3 girls, 4 boys. Girls are I'm much better with the girls than I am the boys. I'm not so good with the boys because I don't like things thrown at me and I don't like being hit with stuff. And they all want to like sword fight. And because I'm also at that age where I'm going through like perimenopause or whatever it's called.
Yep. Same.
So hormones become a very like prominent conversation now in terms of how they dictate our behavior and like how we're interacting with the people around us and stuff. And we forget that at that age when they're going through puberty, it's the exact same thing. It is literally the exact same thing. No, they don't know why they want to rip your head off 1 minute because guess what? There are days that you can look at. My kids have literally gotten to the point where they'll open the door and go, Mom. And based off of how my response is whether or not that door gets open and they sit on the bed or they close the door and go, be back later. Because look, I'm going through the same thing they're going through right now. So they're kind of understanding me. And we sat down and had this conversation. I was like, no shame in the game. Hormones are a motherfucker. Yeah. They mess with you. Men have testosterone. We get estrogen and progesterone, and it will fuck you up. So you have to learn how to just kind of like figure your shit out. And it's unfortunate to have to say that because you don't, that's not what you don't want to be like, but it's the reality and you have to be prepared for that. Like you have to, some people go through hormone therapy to try to figure it out. Some people just kind of like let it go. But you are going through a change and this is something that you will deal with for the rest of your life, not just now. But you'll adapt to it and you'll learn behavior changes. So I have a question for you.
Sure. What's that?
So when I first saw your bio and death doula came up, the first thing I thought was, I need this.
Oh, really? Because most people, the first thing is, oh my God, let me not talk to this woman because she wants to talk about death.
Oh my God, no. No, but that's the reality. There are only, what is it? My adopted dad used to tell me this all the time. The only thing guaranteed in life is death and taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't fight the inevitable. But it's so I've lost people in my life that meant a lot to me, and I saw people go through losing people that meant a lot to them. Pointing at Jen, and Tommy's been through it with his mom. And my ex went through it with his parents. So I feel like this is amazing because it's so hard to prepare for death because nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, it's so unexpected sometimes that it's hard to prepare for something that.
But that's the purpose of Jill here.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a lot of, the work that I do right now is mainly just educating people around the realities of death and dying and grief. But really, a lot of it is just trying to convince people that you never know when it's going to happen. So you need to prepare now so that when it does happen, you're not caught off guard. Because that's the thing. Like, I'll talk to people that they'll be like, their 93-year-old grandmother died. And it's like, it was such a shock. And I'm like, really? They were 93. But we just weren't expecting it. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. And again, trying to have compassion and not judging people. But that to me seems so strange that people are so caught off guard by a 93-year-old dying and they're so upset and so traumatized by the experience. But I'm like, well, at 93, sure. But, I also talk to people of all ages. And unfortunately, I do talk to even parents that have lost children. I mean, we don't know when these things are going to happen to us. So the only thing that we can really do to make it less painful and less traumatic is to prepare ourselves for the fact that it could happen at any point. And if, my husband right now is on the road, he's out traveling. He's always out traveling. If I was the one to get that phone call and somebody was to say, hey, we had it happen locally, a woman, same age as me, our kids are the same ages, her husband was away, collapsed, had a heart attack. That was it. And it was a couple months ago. And I was definitely like, oh man, that could have been me.
Mm-hmm.
What would I do? Well, I know what I would do because we've talked about it. We've planned for it. We have a bunch of different documents written out so that if something were to happen and he was in the hospital and the doctors called me and said, hey, does he want these different things? I'm not trying to figure it out in the moment when I'm stressed, when I'm upset, when I'm already starting a grief process, because, at that point, even if somebody does survive, you're still working through that whole thing, right? It's not something that any of us want to think about. I get that, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good sometimes, even for me to think about it. But not thinking about it doesn't keep you safe from it. It's not going to stop these things from happening. And I've found that, if anything, when I have come to terms with the reality that it could be me at any point that gets that phone call, now whenever my husband leaves the house, even if I'm annoyed with him, I'm always like, I love you. I'll see you soon. Give him a hug and a kiss. The kids leave the house. I love you. I'll see you soon. I give them a hug and a kiss. Well, my son won't hug or kiss me, but, I still make that effort because I don't know if they're going to come home. And so I want to make sure that the last thing that any of us would remember is the fact that we connected, that we made that effort. And I appreciate them all so much more than I used to, honestly. As much as I hate to even admit that, I appreciate them all so much more.
Yeah, I get that because when I hang up my brother with my brothers or my kids or the people that are significant in my life, we don't say bye. We say, I love you. Because if that is the last conversation that they ever have with me, or those the last words they hear out of my mouth, that's what I want them to remember. I don't want it to be, even if we're fighting, arguing, fuck you, you asshole, I love you. And then you hang up. Because you don't know. And the first time I actually lost somebody that was really close to me and like really important to me, Jen got me through it. I lost a lot of who I was in all of that. And now realizing like it opens your eyes to a lot of like you aren't guaranteed tomorrow, like you, and not just about living in the moment, but preparing. So Jen recently lost or suddenly lost her mom. And I watched them go through things with regards to the house and like just it was just so much that gets left behind other than the pain.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to see my kids go through that. So I started, and it's been like 3 years and I still have not done anything because my lawyer handed me a packet and he says, the first thing I want you to do is just fill this out.
Yeah,
We'll get to everything else once this is filled out, but just fill this out. It's kind of like a guiding post. So it's like, all right. I took it home and it starts asking me who's going to take care of my kids.
Yeah.
And who's going to have power of attorney over my estate, and who do I trust to give everything to whoever it is. I got so overwhelmed. I never filled out a single page.
I did all of that. I remember when my husband passed away, and it was hard, but I was like, I'm not leaving that to other people to decide. So, you have to, it's important. It is important to be prepared. It is important to be prepared because I was stuck and I had no clue about anything. And it was a hard time. Like, and then you're not thinking straight when you're doing all of this stuff. And you're just like, how am I supposed to just get through day to day? And there's so many papers and people you have to talk to and stuff you have to sign and banks. And it's just like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And but it is important to have people that you can talk to and have someone like you that can kind of help navigate through. Because I know that would have helped me immensely because I was just like, I felt like I was walking around with a chicken with his head cut off, kind of like, and everyone's trying to push you in directions to be like, yes, we're going to help you. This is what you need to do. But like, you don't know. And it's hard. It's
and not all of it is helpful. Some people are just taking advantage.
Yeah.
And a lot of that happens.
For
when
sure.
you're grieving.
Yeah.
People come out of the woodworks to take advantage.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And that's why
it's like, what?
sometimes people say to me that I almost sound like a party planner. And I'm like, yeah, I guess in some ways, though, that is kind of what it is. It's, that person that can help navigate all the different parts and the moving pieces. And, it frustrates me to hear that somebody just like handed you this paperwork and was like, here, fill this out. Okay, great. I don't even know what some of these things are, like,
no, I didn't.
Right.
That it just became overwhelming. And that's why I couldn't. So, okay. So these are components that a death doula would help with.
Yes. Yeah. Not all death doulas do the pre-planning paperwork. A lot of us do. Because that is the thing, like everybody kind of does things a little bit differently, depending on life experiences as well. Like I will work with grief, but I know other death doulas that have had a lot of loss in their life. So they're like, I don't work with grief. It's too triggering for me. I can't go there. It depends on the death doula, but most of us do help out with the pre-planning. Sometimes it'll be called like an advanced health directive, because there is like the legal part of like the wills and, where all your stuff is going to go to.
Or like even knowing things like to leave, like if you own a house, to leave it as a trust.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this because I'd never been in a position where I would have something to like leave to my kids.
Yeah. And especially if you have more than one child, it is really important because you see that tear apart families so often when people die. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I raised my hand with that one too, and that's heartbreaking, like I think how heartbroken I would be if my children ended up fighting and not speaking to each other after I died. Like, what the fuck, y'all? Like, exactly.
sad.
money, over like,
And over something so stupid. It's so like just it's stupid. Like I don't talk to my brother right now because of everything that happened with my mom's death and just dealing with, you know, the house and selling the house and this and that. And it's a lot. And it's so stupid that, like, you know, my sister and my brother don't even talk. I still talk to my sister, but it's just like it's a whole weird dynamic now how everyone's just not and over something so stupid as a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Well,
like,
you know, a lot of times too, what I find is it's not really about the house. There's like unsettled other stuff that just gets projected onto a really difficult situation, you know? And because I went through it with my, I have half brothers and stepsisters, and like some of the things that one of my half brothers said to me, like it crushed my soul. You can't ever take that back. And then when I step back and I look at it, I'm like, well, it wasn't about the death. It wasn't about the stuff. It's that for his entire life, he's thought that maybe I wasn't really part of the family.
yeah.
You know, and like, but when somebody dies, all of a sudden you're saying things or doing things that you've just kind of like bottled up for a really long time. But also you can't take it back. And so like, I don't forget that either.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is what it is. But part of me is like, why couldn't we have just had this conversation? Like, if you really didn't think that I was our father's child, why didn't you have that conversation with me? Why did you wait until I'm grieving and then you act like an ass?
Jen and I had this conversation. I think I've kind of roped Tommy into this conversation before as well. Not everyone has the same like logical kind of common sense thought process when it comes to things like that. So while we think it's something as simple as like open communication, well, communication and actually understanding and comprehending what someone's telling you, some people just don't know how to verbalize what it is that they're feeling. Like for us, it's easy. It's simple. You felt not a part of the family. Like that's something, why wouldn't you have been able to communicate to me? But maybe he was afraid because voicing it makes it real. And but our brains don't look at it that way because it's like, well, but voicing it makes other people, put them in a position to be able to like, okay, let's do something about this. Or you get an answer. Like you're either, okay, so I just communicated to you that I don't feel like part of the family. I get no response back. That was my answer. But a lot of people are too afraid of either the answer or saying it out loud and it being real. So it took grief in order for it to come out. Yeah. And it's just, but again, it has a lot to do with, we all like handle situations differently and we all think differently and process information differently. And that also means we communicate it differently. So maybe he tried in his own way. Maybe he was like rebelling really bad or something. In his teen brain, he tried.
Nah, he was a grown-ass man. There was no teen brain going on there. But either way, yes. I mean, it's, you know, and that's why, too, when I talk about getting things in order, sometimes, especially at the beginning of, like, my death doula journey, I used to be like, you need to get your stuff in order so you get what you want at your end of life, whatever treatments it is, whatever else. And then I started to realize that a lot of people were kind of like, well, I don't really care. Like, it's fine. Whatever happens is fine. But then once I started saying, no, but this is something you give to your family. This is a gift that you're going to give to your family because you take the burden off of them having to make a decision. You know, nobody wants a doctor in their face saying, should I intubate them? Because if I don't intubate them, they're going to die. And it's like, I don't know what intubation is. Yeah. Exactly.
Stressful.
It's so stressful.
It's so stressful.
It's terrible. It's a terrible position to leave your family members in. Where if we talk about these things, because that's the thing too, you can have it written down all you want to, but if you don't have the conversation with your family, it doesn't.
No.
Right? So you need to have the conversation and say, hey, you know, like I filled out this paperwork. Can we talk about what's in there? A lot of people do find that their family then kind of is like, I don't really want to talk about it, or we don't need to worry about this right now.
They don't.
Right.
They don't want to hear it. Yeah. It's hard. You have to have these talks.
Well, that's it. You have to have it. And I try to help make it so that it's really not as heavy and morbid as people are afraid it's going to be. And I think it's like when I take my daughter to get a shot at the doctor, she screams and cries for 2 hours. I mean, the one day she was literally on the floor under the table. I had to like crawl down there, pull her. I mean, it was a nightmare.
I've had these. Yes, I've had these episodes.
Terrible. And then she got the shot and was like, wasn't that bad. And then was fine. And I was like, yeah, but the 2 hours leading up to it was torture for everybody around. So like, it's kind of the same thing where people, I think, are so afraid to even have the conversation that they don't ever have it. And then once they do, they're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. That wasn't so difficult. It wasn't morbid. It wasn't scary. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be. Now, at the same time, yes, it can be emotional, right? And talking about these things with your loved ones can bring up emotion. It could bring up sadness. It often will bring up old, unprocessed grief because we don't deal well with grief in our culture. And so we all hold it in and we bottle it up. And then when something triggers it, it feels like a flood. And then we get almost get afraid we're going to get like lost in it. So then we push it down further, right? We go through that cycle. So yes, it can feel emotional. But something that I've even been trying to tell myself recently is, what's wrong with feeling sad? Like, why am I so afraid to feel sad? There's really nothing wrong with feeling sadness. If I didn't feel sadness, I really wouldn't know what joy felt like, right? Like, we need to have them both. But yet, even in my head, there's part of me that's like, oh, I don't want to feel sad about things. Like, that's not cool. Well, why is it not cool? Because really, usually once I just feel it and allow myself to feel it, then it's kind of, I move through it fairly quickly. And okay, it didn't kill me. It didn't hurt me. Maybe my face looks a little terrible afterwards. My nose puffs up to like 4. Exactly. But other than that,
your nose is dripping.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see myself in the mirror afterwards. But other than that, it's really not as bad as I fear it's going to be, this idea of being sad about things. So now I allow myself to have the conversations with people. And, in some ways too, that's opened me up to more joy in my life, because I think for so long, I didn't feel a lot of joy and happiness, but I also didn't feel a lot of sadness and grief either. I just kind of stayed in this weird place of like not feeling much. I was like numb to so much of what was happening around me.
Out.
Exactly. You do. You shut everything out. If you're shutting out the pain, you're also going to shut out the happiness. We need to experience it all. And the more that we get comfortable experiencing it all, the easier it is to just move through it and be like, okay, I can get through this. We can do this.
Yeah.
Plus, having that plan in place will make it a lot easier, because then you're not like, oh shit, now I'm, in so deep with like not knowing what to do, what decisions to make, where all this stuff is, right? How many people are like, well, my paperwork is, in my spare bedroom, in the third drawer, all the way in the back. What?
You don't know if people have life insurance policies, anything.
Yeah. No, it's a lot.
Who the benefactors are, like when it's just, or if they haven't set any of that up, then your family's like really screwed. Then you go into probate and it becomes a whole different monster.
Yes.
And it's just not like, I don't know. I feel like people like you, I wish I knew that you existed sooner. I would spend a lot less time stressing over the past 4 years, because you were definitely a call that is going to be made, because I know that this needs to happen and I know I need to do it and I need to get over all of that and just get it done. But it is something that we don't like to talk about, because it brings up so many of the unknowns, and that's where fear comes from. Unknown. Mm-hmm. Like you said, your daughter was terrified for 2 hours. It was awful. And then it was done. It was the unknown. You're not going to willingly walk into somebody poking something that could potentially like hurt you. That's human nature, fight or flight. It's there for a reason. But once you get past it and you do it, Tommy, dying.
Oh, yeah. Well,
then you kind of can see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So,
and that's, a thing too, when I talk to people and I say, what part are you most afraid of around death? And it usually falls into 3 different buckets. The pain and suffering leading up to the death, which I'm like, okay, we can actually work with that. We can prevent some of that, especially if we pre-plan, especially if we have the conversations, right? That is something we could work with. Then people are like, well, I don't know what's going to come after this. I'm like, well, none of us do, right? I don't care who you are. You might say, oh, I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. Okay, fine. That's cool. That's your belief. But like, nobody knows for sure.
No,
So
no one's ever come back and been like, hey.
Yeah, this is what happens. Just FYI to people.
Yeah.
Really cool.
But that's it. I mean, I don't know. But then I've also talked to people on my podcast that have had near-death experiences, or people that like talk to spirits and like others that have crossed over. And like most of the time, 99% of the time, it's actually, this is kind of cool. It's better than it is here. So it kind of made me feel a little bit better. I was like, all right, either I'm going to go out like a light bulb and I'm not going to know the difference, or hopefully whatever it is actually going to be better than what is here. So, okay, I don't really have anything to fear.
Notion, because I mean, I go through a gamut of emotions. I am also, on top of like having anxiety, I am bipolar. So I have like my manic episodes, I have my depressive episodes, but I do feel those moments of like happiness and that joy in like a sunset or the sunrise or just the birds that are around me, and in those moments that you'll never get to experience again. And my lows are lows and they suck ass, but they make those like moments that I can enjoy being in the moment so worth it. Because I know that a lot of people don't feel that, and I feel so bad that there are people out there that don't experience that joy. So the idea that we die and it gets better, what?
Yeah,
I will take it, because if I can feel more than that joy.
I've heard a lot of that whatever it is, it's better. And I even talked to somebody that had a near-death experience that said, almost daily they want to go back. And they're not like, it's not any type of,
no, it's just,
no,
yeah.
It's just that whatever they experienced was so much better, quote unquote, better than what's here, that every day there's part of them that's just like pulled back towards this other thing. And they're not a religious person. Like, they're not like a God, like heaven, religion person at all.
Yeah.
But they said whatever it was, it's better. And I was like, damn, alrighty. So there are some people that supposedly have experienced it, glimpsed it, or have talked to, quote unquote, talked to people that have transitioned to the other side, that they say, actually, it's fine. It's all fine. Honestly, there's nothing to be afraid of as to what comes after. And then there's people that are like, well, what about the moment of death? Like, I'm afraid of what's going to happen at the moment of death. Well, when I've been around people that have died, the moment of death, unless it's tragic, right? That's, think something different.
Yeah.
It's calm.
It's very
peaceful,
calm.
right?
I was with my grandma when she passed in the hospital, and I actually was holding her hand while she passed, and it was very calm.
It
was
so
real-
calm.
So I did not have that experience. I had the whole total opposite. I actually couldn't even stay in the room anymore. She wasn't making sense anymore. Like, the words coming out of her mouth, you knew that they weren't the words that she was trying to say. She didn't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see it. She wasn't ready. Everybody around us kept talking about her dying.
Yeah, it's hard. But at least she had people around her that loved her, and that's the most important thing, to have those people. Like, I know
Yeah, I ended up leaving.
it was really nice in my grandma's room. It wasn't just me. There was like all my cousins, and she had nine kids. So my aunts were in there. Like, we were all around her, and you could just feel the love. And I feel like that was a really nice way for her to pass. Like, knowing that she had all these people that.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
It
I had
does.
someone afterwards tell me that they're like, when I'm on my deathbed, can you be there too? I'm like, what? No, I can't do this. This is like, this
It's hard.
bro.
Hard, but you do it. I mean, it was that was one thing with my grandma. With my mom, it was very sudden. She was they had done a procedure, and then she was kind of like in a coma, so she was on machines, and machines were kind of keeping her alive. But my sister, she does a lot of work with shamans, so she was doing a lot of energy work with my mom during that time. And what she said that she felt from her, because kind of I'm somewhat empathetic, like an empath, so I can feel. I felt a lot of fear from my mom. Like when I was in there, all I felt was like scared from her. But what my sister, I guess she got something, and what she felt was that she was almost in like a dream, and she was in like so my mom was like one of those people in the 70s. She was John Travolta. She did dancing contests, and she won a bunch of them, and she was like that Farrah Fawcett hair, and that's kind of where she was. Like, that's what my sister kind of got, is that she was like in that, and she kept kind of like thinking of like this life as kind of like a dream that she kind of like kept looking back at, but being like, no, I'm at the party. Like, I want to be here. And like,
It's a better place.
That's where she was happiest. And like, I don't know. I felt a lot of fear from her, and just not ready is what I kept feeling, like not ready. Like, I know she couldn't talk to us, but it was weird. It was like a weird time, but I felt a lot of just uncertainty from her. She was just scared.
Yeah.
It was.
And again, a lot of that is that leading up to the moment of death. People do fight. They don't want to go. They don't want to die. They're not ready. And to me, because of people that I've talked to, right, things that I've read, a lot of that, again, goes back to our regrets and our shame and our unfinished business, where all of a sudden, when we're like, oh, this is it, like, shit, this is it, for real, then we have this like, no, but I can't go yet. I have to say I love you. I have to say I'm sorry. I have to have this conversation. And so that's part of my like soapbox too, is we need to have those conversations now, because we don't want to get to that end and think, oh, but I wasted so much of my life. I wasted time. I held on to this grudge. I was angry. I was upset with people. Why didn't I say I'm sorry? Because now those things that we're angry and upset about seem so stupid when we know that this is it and we're like moving on. And so a lot of people do fight. And that again leads to that, I don't even know if it's confusion, but there can definitely be a lot of agitation. It's called terminal agitation, right? That like at the end, there's a lot of stuff that they're going through that is so traumatic for people to experience. But if we could kind of work through some of these things and just be ready. I mean, and again, that's easy for me to say, because in my head, I'm always like, I'm going to be 95 when I die, right? Now, talk to me tomorrow if I'm laying on my deathbed at 45. Like, I'm probably going to be a little bit agitated and not ready to go and not happy about it. But again, because the last couple years especially, I've made peace with almost everything that I've needed to make peace with. I feel confident that, my husband knows I love him. My children know that I love them. My mother knows that I love her. We worked through a lot of our drama, right? Like, I really know that if it were tomorrow, I might not be okay, but I wouldn't be laying there thinking, oh, but there's so much I didn't. Exactly. So many regrets, so many things that I left unsaid. If anything, I would just be really bummed because I don't want to leave kids behind. Like, I don't want that. But it's, it's hard. It's hard because I don't know if we're ever going to be ready to die, right? At any age. Hey, are we ever ready to let go? I don't know.
No, she definitely, I told her that I was leaving the room. I was like, I love you. I'll be back tomorrow. I felt in my head there wasn't going to be a tomorrow. And there wasn't. And I went to walk away, and she grabbed from my hand and pulled me back into her. And I'm like, okay. So I lean in to see, and she couldn't talk. Like, nothing, like, she kept asking for peaches. And that was all that was coming out. And you know that that's not what she was trying to say. And it just got like, so now like there's this question of like, what did she want to say? Like now that's just always there. Like, what were you trying to tell me? And I have absolutely no fucking clue. But I don't want my kids to go through that. But because I experienced that, then I know that like that's a conversation that I have to have with my kids. Like I want to make sure that everything that I could possibly have to say to them, that they know how proud I am. They know how much I love them. They know that I'm not perfect. And I did make a lot of sacrifices that they might not think were sacrifices on my end, but it was to make the best decisions for them. Because ultimately, like, that's who you're leaving. You want to leave your kids behind better off than you are. So you try to put them into that position your whole life. And then you're not really prepared for it to be done. And you're like, wait a minute, there's so much left. I need to see more. Like, she never met my last baby. So, like, and she left the puzzle undone with my 10-year-old that still talks about the fucking puzzle. And it's like 4 years later. So,
yeah. No, sometimes I think about the fact that I'm not going to see my children as adults. Like, I mean, hopefully I'll see them as adults, but the fact that I will hopefully die before them, there's going to be a significant portion of their life that I'm never going to see, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay, because to me, again, that's the natural order of things. I should die before them. But, I was older when I had them, which I hear it all the time now from my daughter. Why am I the older mom? And I have gray hair coming in, and like, it's embarrassing to her that like, that I'm the older mom compared to all her other
but
friends.
That's so much more common now.
Oh, it for sure is. But it's, yes, a significant portion of her friends, their moms are, in their 30s, and I'm 45, and like, but whatever, I don't care. She'll get over it. But it does make it even more where I think about it, and I'm like, all right, so even if I live to be 90, even if I live to be 95, she's only going to be like 60. Like, that's not old. She might, like, there's so much of her life that I'm not going to experience, even if I live to be older. Yeah. And that to me does seem kind of weird, but also it is what it is, right? I can't change it. I don't want to be around forever, like, that's the thing too. I don't want to. I'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, if I could take a pill and live forever, I would. I'm like, why? Why would you want to do that?
You wouldn't appreciate the moment that you have if you did that.
Yeah.
No, and you would outlive everybody.
Yeah.
Multiple times, right? How many times would you get into like close friendships and relationships with people, and then they would die before you?
Yeah.
Like, that was the big thing for my grandmother. And when she died at 94, she would say to me the last couple of years of her life, she'd be like, Jill, I shouldn't live this long. Nobody should live this long. Everybody's gone. All of my friends, my husband, all of my siblings, they're all gone. And I was like, damn, that does suck. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, but I'm still here. You got that at least. You got me. But it's different about that. Yeah, it's totally different.
Because we, like, even like myself, like we have our own life. I have a million children. I have businesses. I have a life that I'm trying to live and still maintain. And there's so many people that I've lost contact with over the years. And it's not that I don't want them in my life. My priority right now is the family that's in my home and the children that I won't get forever with. And it doesn't mean that these people are no longer important to me or that I don't love them. It's just that priority-wise and time-wise, this is where I have to focus my energy. So it's where I'm focusing my energy. But also, I wanted to point out, because I know that you were talking about like not having regrets and like not letting petty things get in the way and stuff. People also need to know that it's not okay to be in toxic relationships.
Oh,
and it is totally okay if the toxic relationship you are removing yourself from is a relative or a significant other or even in your child, because we're not made for everyone. And sometimes we operate and function better without certain entities in our lives. And there's a reason that we all gravitate to the same types of people and same types of mind frames. And if it doesn't line up, it just causes so much negative and toxic like stuff in your life. And that's what you're exposing your kids to. So if you, yes, don't fight over the petty stuff, but also realize that it is okay to prioritize you and your family over others' feelings in order to keep you and your family mentally and emotionally safe as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, again, a big regret that people have when they're dying is staying in situations that were toxic, that were, toxic at worst. And if nothing else, just not a situation that brings them any joy or happiness. They're just there because that's what they thought. Exactly. They're existing. And for some of these people, it's like they have, quote unquote, everything. They had the money, they had the houses, they had the cars, they had all this stuff that people in society told them they needed to have. And then they get to the end of life and they're like, yeah, but I didn't have people around me that loved me. I didn't have experiences that I enjoyed. I had stuff. And again, now it's too late to go back and do it. But, I think like for me, when I think about, not holding grudges, it's, yes, I have removed people from my life that are, they're just not good for me. It's not something that is good for me or my family, but I'm also not going to stay angry at them for being who they are.
No.
Right? Like,
no, that and I think choice to remove them. It's just, it's okay to be okay with removing them, but but you also have to release that. Like, there's no grudge.
Hold it.
All right. That you just you're no longer a priority in my life.
Yes. And, getting closure with the people that have removed us from their lives as well. Like there's definitely people where sometimes it's like, you're thinking in your head like, oh, well, what did I do wrong? Like, or you're, mad and upset about things. And it's like, look, like you said, we're not made for everybody.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I've had people in my life that we actually bring out the worst of each other, where I'm like, why am I behaving this way? This literally makes no sense to me. Why am I behaving like this? And it's like, oh, for whatever reason, our little dance, our dynamic is bringing out the worst in both of us. And so, but we need to part ways.
It's just, it's life, man.
Life, it's hard sometimes and it gets ugly, but it's also worth it.
It's totally worth
for
it.
Sure. It is totally worth it. And, feeling grief too about those types of endings. I think we often only think of grief as in death, but we really should grieve the ending of anything, whether it's relationships, jobs, friendships, like things when they end, even when we know that it's for the best, it still can bring up feelings of sadness and loss and grief. And I know I had felt like shame and embarrassment over feeling bad about the ending of things. And now I'm like, no, why should I feel shamed for feeling sad that something ended? Even if I know it's for the best, I can still feel that sadness. I could still feel that grief. And we just kind of need to honor all of that grief. Because again, if not, we shove it all down. So that then when we're grieving the death of somebody, all the grief comes up. Like it's all coming up, whether we want it to or not. So just like, let's handle our grief as it comes and not
internalize it.
Totally.
Yeah, that's just internalizing it. You just deal with it in the moment and then just move on. But a lot of people have fallen into that like category where they take that grief and they turn themselves into a victim. They can't move past it. And that includes like relations, not just death, relationships. They might convince themselves that that they are this type of person. There is no one in the world that can tell them that they're not this type of person. And that's just not true. Like, 10.
Sorry. I'm like,
it's okay. I mean, again, it is a lot. I totally know that this is a big conversation for people to have.
You can't get lost in it.
Yeah.
People like, you feel it, go through it, experience it. It is real. But then get over. There's still a life to live. there's still a world out there. There's new relationships to make. Like Jen tells me all the time. What do you tell me all the time?
There are those people that come into your life for a season, and those are the ones that are supposed to help you through a certain time in your life, or kind of help you see something or help you grow in that moment. And then that's it. Like that relationship fizzles because they've done what they needed. And then you have the people who are there for a lifetime, and those are the ones that, you go through, and they're your people, and that's your tribe, and they might not be blood, but they're your, those are the ones that you do life with. And I totally believe in that. And just having them for whatever time that they're in there for.
So you appreciate those people for what they should, because everyone in your life, regardless of how long they exist in it or what type of impact, they have an impact. And everyone teaches each other something. So like even the people that bring out the worst in you, you now realize, holy crap. So like I don't have the type of personality that meshes well with everyone. There are personalities I have to veer away from, but it's a lesson. So now you know that that's not the type of kind of environment that I like to be in. So you don't go there. You prioritize your time somewhere else. I mean, it's limited. We know that. So, and what's important to me isn't necessarily important to the person next to us. That doesn't mean that, there's something wrong with both of us. That just means that we have different values in life, and we can coexist and be happy in our own selves. We don't have to worry about everybody else.
Yeah, and relationships change too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes people will be in your life, and then you kind of drift apart, and then you might come back together, and then you might drift apart. And that's okay too. Sometimes we want to hold on so tight and be like, I don't understand. Why are we drifting apart? What's happening? What's going on?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just life is happening, and it's okay. Exactly. People change, and as our life changes, right? When you have little kids too, that's the thing that I think
Life gets in the way.
Prepared.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's
so funny though, because there's this argument going on right now that the value that my ex's relationship and I had, and the value that I had with my son's father or my kid's dad, it was not that it was something that I was enjoying. It was the fact that we didn't have kids together. And that was what was being thrown at me. It's not that you guys have a better relationship. It's that you guys don't have kids. So of course you're happy. But that wasn't the case for me in terms of I don't need to not be around my kids to be happy, or I love my kids. I can be around them and be happy. I could not be around them and be happy. It was him and the dynamic between our relationship and what it was doing to me. And it had nothing to do with the kids. So I just think it's funny that people try to blame the fact that, oh, well, our relationship went into the crapper because we had kids. Well, not necessarily. I'm sure there's other factors that look, I'm not even with the other guy anymore. So it obviously was not the kids.
Yeah, and for me, my husband and I, we've known each other for 25 years now or so. We've known each other a really long time. We were best friends before we even started dating. And then we dated and we got married and we moved back to Jersey, which is where I'm from. And we opened a bakery together and we worked together.
Yeah, South Orange?
No. We were down in Vineland. So way South Jersey. Yeah. Vineland, New Jersey.
Oh my goodness.
But it was amazing. It was both of our dream. We loved it so much. And we were together all the time, right? Because we worked there together. And once we had children and then life just changed, we needed to close the bakery, partially because we couldn't afford to support ourselves with the income from the bakery. The bakery was doing fine. We just couldn't really pay ourselves. So he had to get a quote unquote real job so that he could get a paycheck and health insurance, because you can't afford health insurance if you don't have a job. And so then he started working and, I was taking care of the children, and it really changed our relationship so much. And in some ways, the worst thing that ever happened to my husband and I was to have the kids. And it doesn't mean that we don't adore our children and that we don't love them to pieces. But it really just now when we're together, we can't really be easily together, right? Because there's the kids and we got to deal
You
with
got to
this.
run here and you got to run there.
Oh my God, all
That's
over
why
the
it's
place.
so important to have a support system in place.
Yeah.
Not just for yourself, but like so that you can make that call and be like, hey, so I want to go away for the weekend, because it's important for you guys to have your one-on-one time. And that's something that I value. I think that the bed belongs to parents. I don't think that kids should be in it. I think that all parents should have that date night. It's super important because you're not just parents. You are still in a relationship, and that is what people forget. Yes, it is important for you to be present for them, but it is also so important for you to be present for each other, because guess what? They're going to build their own families when they get older, and they're going to be out the door, and then you're going to be staring at somebody that you don't know because you didn't put the time in to get to know them. All you know is that you had kids together, and he was at hockey and you're at cheer.
Yeah. Especially because we do change as we get older, you know, like him and I are growing in different ways. And in some ways we're growing together, and in other ways we're growing in separate areas. And so, yes, we do try to make sure that we keep up a connection, and we make sure that we take that time so that we don't end up, you know, so many couples that you hear it, where all of a sudden the kids leave the house and then they're like, I don't know the person sitting across from me anymore. And again, he was my best friend. Like, even before we dated, he was my best friend. And so it just seems so weird to me to think like, if we see each other an hour a day, sometimes we're lucky, because there's just life. It's
so
just
much
so busy right now.
But that's why it's so important, because look, if we can fit all the shit we fit into our schedule in terms of our kids' needs, then there is time for us to fit something in for ours. We just have to prioritize it, because guess what? Sorry, that play date doesn't need to be at our house today. Mommy and daddy are going away for the weekend. You guys are going to grandma's. Like, it's just, or like whatever, you make plans with your friends and you organize it so that you all go somewhere together, but the teenagers are all together in their group. The littles have like a camp to go to, and the adults get adult time.
Yeah.
Because it's so, dude, we all grow, we change. We're not still the same people I know I'm not the same person that I was even 5 years ago.
Oh, for sure. Me neither.
If I'm not communicating that to the person that's supposed to be my partner in my life, and they're not communicating their changes and what's going on in their world, in their head, in their mind, and we just get so consumed by, oh, the kids need to be here. This one has this appointment. This one has to go here. Then, well, all I know is that we have schedules that don't line up. So how do we remedy this? Because this isn't working for me.
No, that time together is so important. Or at least finding that.
That's supposed to be the person that, like, you know, when you're like old and
that's your person.
You're walking down the street and you go to Disney together at like 80 years old, because why not? You don't have anything else to do that day, and you're like, let's go see Mickey.
Yeah. No, for sure. And, you know, my husband and I now, like, we walk together in the mornings. And so I'm like, damn, we are old. Like, we're like the old people at the, like, park, like, walking along, trying to get our cardio in, you know? But it is also our time. That's when we talk about what's going on. That's when it's like, oh, how's your day look? What's going on today? What happened yesterday? Because there are also things that, you know, especially with the line of work that I do, I don't necessarily want my children to overhear me talking about potentially something that was, you know, difficult with a client. And of course, I don't share like personal things.
Yeah.
But, you know, when somebody dies, or like now I volunteer at a hospital, and, you know, one of the women that I had visited with, then she died before I had a chance to get back and see her. And so, like, I was talking with him about how that felt. And, you know, I don't necessarily want my children to hear all of that. I don't hide from them the fact that we're all going to die, right? Like, they know that. But they also don't need to hear some of the more difficult parts that I still process, because I'm still human, right? Even though this is my job. Yeah. And even though when people die, it's not like I'm like sobbing and heartbroken, but there's also part of me that's like, oh, but we really connected. And I'm still sad. And I'm sad that I wasn't there to like help her through that final transition, right? So like, that's our time to have those conversations that I'm like, I know those little ears, they might not hear 99% of when
we don't want them to.
They tune in right when they don't need to be tuning in.
But yeah, when I'm like, hey, did you do your homework? They don't hear brush your teeth. Yeah, they don't hear it.
They go deaf during those.
Yeah.
What? You were talking to me? I didn't hear you.
Exactly. Huh? I didn't hear that. I'm like, sure, you heard it. You just chose not to hear it. So yeah.
Selective hearing. I have that.
That's what we all kind of do to a certain degree, for sure.
We take showers together at night, and that's kind of where nothing weird, like we're just showering, but we talk about our day and what's been like, what was bothering us or what wasn't bothering us or what, and kind of that's our time where we know no one's going to bother us, and we can have that like one-on-one to just kind of like shoot the shit and figure out like.
When we lived in California, we lived in like an old apartment building that had a clawfoot bathtub, like a real old school, like up past my head clawfoot bathtub. And every night my husband and I would, before we were even married, we would take a bath together. I swear we planned our entire life in that bathtub. Like that's where we planned out whether we were going to get married, because I was always kind of like, I don't really care about getting married. Like if we're together, as long as we're like, committed. We planned out, opening a bakery together. We planned out whether we would ever want to have children. Like our entire life was planned in that bathtub. Our shower here now, we can't quite fit together. We've tried it a couple times and like somebody's fallen out. You turn around, get elbowed, falling out of the tub. Doesn't work. But man, that bathtub in California, it was amazing.
I also want to hear a little bit more about your podcast.
Yeah, oh, sure. So my podcast is called Seeing Death Clearly, because the name of my business is End of Life Clarity. Because when I was really trying to name my business and think about what I wanted to convey to people, is I wanted people to understand that death is not what we all fear it is, right? I wanted to help bring clarity to the end of life. And so when I was talking about starting a podcast, I was like, oh, well, I'll name it Seeing Death Clearly. So kind of a play on the same thing. And I talk to all kinds of people, whether it's, just somebody that's experienced the death of a loved one and they want to come on and share their story, to hospice chaplains, to people that have written books about their experiences. And it's really just a space because I realized I was having amazing conversations that weren't heavy, they weren't morbid, they weren't scary. And I was like, this is what people need to hear. They need to just hear that you can talk about death and you could talk about how it changes your life. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do, was just share those experiences. And so almost all of them are interview style. Like I don't get on and just like talk, except I did recently because my aunt died and I was with her for the last couple of weeks of her life. I was with her through like her death. And I wanted to really share that, planning and preparing really does make a difference. Right? It was so much easier for all of us involved because her and my uncle had already talked about a lot of these things. It still was not easy, right? I still sat with her. I was by myself. My uncle lives an hour. He's all the way down in Cape May. So he's like the lowest point of New Jersey. And so he just couldn't get to where she was. And so I sat with her by myself. And the whole experience was beautiful. I mean, I felt like as sad as I am, even now that she's gone, it felt like such a gift to be able to give her, to be with her for those last couple of weeks and to be with her for those last, moments. And I wanted people to hear. And I mean, and part of it, like I'm crying. I was like, I'm not even going to hide the fact that I'm crying, right? Like this is real. This is the real experience. But so most of the time, though, it is always interviews. I don't, again, I just love to talk to people. So like this gives me and some of the people like, most people are probably going to have no idea who this is. It's a woman named Barbara Carnes. She's one of the first people to ever get into hospice, like in the 70s, like one of the first people that was in hospice. She's written a ton of books. Even when people go on to hospice, most of them have these little booklets that they give out.
Went into hospice?
Well, no. She worked.
I'm like, she went into hospice and wrote a book.
No. She wrote the books, but like,
getting back.
Yeah. If you have family members that go into hospice, they give out these like little blue books, like they're actually called the Blue Book, right? Mm-hmm. And so the fact that I got Barbara Carnes to get on my podcast and talk to me, I was so excited. And my daughter was like, why are you so excited? And I was like, you don't understand. And then I was like, okay, imagine if your favorite YouTuber agreed to get on a phone call with you. That's how I feel. And then she was like, well, I want to see what she looks like. Shall I show her a picture? And she's like, she's just an old lady. And I was like, she's not just an old lady. That's Barbara Carnes. And she wants to talk to me. Like,
That is
oh my God.
history.
Oh God, I was
Awesome.
beyond like screaming like a child. My husband was like, are you okay? And I was like, Barbara Carnes said yes. So excited. And so that's actually one of the super cool things about having my podcast is people that normally if I would have just been like, hey, Barbara, you want to get on a call with me? You're like, no. What? Like, who are you? But you have a podcast and people are like, oh, sure. I'd love to be on your podcast. So that's been a really amazing experience for me is just to be able to talk to people that I really admire their work and that I know I've learned so much from their work because they came before me. And so to be able to talk to them, I'm so flattered when they agree. It's like a really big deal for me.
It is amazing. We're obviously talkers as well.
Yeah. You can see.
Yeah. And I love just meeting new people because we all just come from so many different walks of life. But when it comes down to it, we're all really going through the same shit.
Yeah.
We all have the same insecurities. We all have the same fears. We just all approach things differently and handle things differently. And it's just so interesting to see because some people just don't know. Like, I never knew that there was a death doula. Now I know.
Yeah.
Now other people will know. And that is something that is so important. And for those that don't realize it, it is so important to be prepared. Jill, it was such a pleasure having you on and speaking to you. And I've learned so much from you. And I'm actually totally one of those, I love history and the fact that you were so excited about this woman, that's history. That's just so much more than an older woman. That's literally history. These are the paved, these are the people that have set the stones and the things in motion that we're experiencing today. So it's so freaking awesome. And I'm so happy for you that you get to feel that joy. And it was such a pleasure being able to just shoot the shit with you.
And I also wanted to find out a little more, how do people get in touch with you and where do they find you?
So I'm on all the social medias as End of Life Clarity. That's kind of like the handle or whatever you call it that I use. And then my podcast is on all the major podcast platforms. And then there's my website, which is also just End of Life Clarity, where there's links to all the stuff, the social media, the podcast, blogs, all that good stuff.
That's awesome. We can't wait to hear more about you and can't wait to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation and I appreciate you being really vulnerable with me today because I know this can be difficult.
Oh, of course. We're open books.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely let me there. We'll share it. We'll cry sometimes, but we're totally open books.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 42.
So, wow, that was a pretty powerful conversation with Jill.
It was.
I know Jen hit you pretty hard there for obvious.
Yeah, at the beginning, she got me, and I had to walk away and get some tissues because I was I felt the tears coming. I was and then it just made me think a lot about John and his death and just the unknowing, and he was so young, and it's just hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's true. If I had someone like her back then, that would have made my life so much easier.
So much easier.
So much easier because I felt like I didn't know what was going on, which way was up.
Yeah, we've all gone through it with various family members and loved ones. There's just so much, like you said, there's so much chaos, really, and just so much going on. You don't know what to do first, and on top of that, throw the emotion into it.
Yeah,
Really
so you're just like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, but then you don't know where to start, and then you don't want to start because you're just.
Well, we have coaches for everything. We have birthing coaches, we have life coaches, we have sports coaches, and then now it makes sense. I had no idea it was there until we found this guest. So
Yeah,
it's pretty powerful stuff.
yeah, she was an amazing person to talk to.
She was so awesome.
And we usually do it. We're a lot more fun usually, but these were definitely important.
They were so deep.
Yeah, really deep, and that's great because that's life.
Life is
Like you
not
guys said.
just happy all the time.
No, yeah.
And it's okay to talk about the sad stuff. And I think that's why we need to be open to it a little bit more.
It's
And
all
these are-
about normalizing.
Yeah.
And as Jill said, you have to have the important conversations. And she meant it in the light of, you know, telling people you love them, telling people you care about them, telling people you appreciate them. But also you have to figure out like the planning for things.
No, you also have to
Uh-huh.
think about like, are we burying you? Are we cremating you?
Mhm.
Do you want to be on life support or not? Are we turning the machines on? Are we even are we even entertaining the
But
machines?
those are also all the things that are so scary, though, because
You know what? You have.
don't, like,
Oh, that
you don't know what you're going to feel in the moment because you don't know how you're going to go. So, like, what if being intubated for 2 days really will save your life because of the type of situation that warrants the intubation, as opposed to like just being completely opposed to intubation? Then you might die because you made a decision that you did. Like, we're not doctors.
No, but I feel like the whole point of the healthcare proxy is to kind of help you figure out, like, okay, is this what you're, you know, what do you want, just in case? Like, okay, yeah, maybe we have to, like, you know, you do that for 2 days, but let's say it doesn't work. Are you okay with being on the machines? Do you want like the other, like, how long do you want to be on the machines for? Because that's an important question too. Because, you know, like my mom was on the machine for like, it was a while. It was like weeks, and like, you know, like, and I knew she didn't want that, you know, so that's a hard thing to kind of chew them lemon heads.
Audrey's got a lemon head addiction, so let's lighten it up a little bit. She is just chomp, but you moved away from the mic, so nice mic technique. But-
No, I'm crunching.
Putting me all out there like that. That's what's up, bro.
Let's send in lemon heads. But that was a great conversation.
Lemon heads.
And
Maybe they'll sponsor us.
there you go, lemon heads. Reach out.
Lemonheads and Harry Styles.
And
Harry Styles. Hashtag
that's a
Harry
first.
Styles.
Wait a minute, that's a first. Jill did not notice Harry Styles.
Or was she just being nice? And did she think I just had a random picture in the back?
It doesn't look like a picture. It looks like a human being.
It does.
It doesn't look like a picture. Maybe to you it does, Jen, but on this side, it looks like a person.
It kind of looks like a transparent person, like almost you can see through them.
Yeah, a little bit. Now, actually, you're right. By the light there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the shadow. But
It's the ghost of Harry Styles.
Or with Ron Jeremy.
oh god,
I don't know how Ron Jeremy looks like Harry Styles, but it's now
Comes together with Ron Jeremy.
but yeah, it was great. It was great to have her on.
side by side. Maybe I should get a Ron Jeremy one up.
A lot of the feedback from listeners that you mentioned is that they like being in the conversation, and that was an important conversation to have today. And to our listener in Holland, thank you for listening. I don't speak Dutch, but yeah, please
Thank
spread
you.
Dankeschön. That's German.
Dankeschön. Yeah.
Question.
Oh no, that's not Holland.
No, that's Germany. But if you do like what you're hearing on Rule 42, please share it with your friends, like it on social media, leave us a review on Apple, and reach out to us any way you can. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And tell your friends about us.
Here. Yes. Share. Comment. Like.
Reviews.
Definitely reviews.
We need reviews.
Till next time.
1, 2, 3, 42.
Rule 42 is hosted by Audrey Cruz and Jen Burke. It is produced and edited by Tom Smith. The opening song is Rule 42 by Eddie Carr. Rule 42's artwork was created by Aubrey Cruz. And I'm your announcer, Molly Smith. Thank you for listening to Rule 42. We hope you enjoyed the show. New episodes premiere every Thursday on all podcast platforms. Please subscribe, share the show, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple.